welcome to an episode of Jacob's House of Rock. And in this episode, I'm just doing a little bit of a video talking about my Rickenbacker, or Chickenbacker as you like, my Chinese copy Rickenbacker 4003 or 4004, whatever type it actually is, a copy of bass guitar. So this guitar has been, or bass guitar has been, the topic of my most viewed, most popular YouTube series, not just on this channel, Jacob's House of Rock, but just in general, because I have a couple of other YouTube channels, both, you know, my band channels. I have Atomic Vinyl Reviews, which is my movie and action figure review channel, mainly covering like kaiju, Godzilla stuff, and all that sort of stuff. And though I've had successful videos through all of those channels, this particular series about this Chinese copy bass, especially the first video where I actually review and demo this thing, has been such a hit. It has, like, I don't know, what is over 20,000 views now, which is just, oh, it's amazing to me, because I never expected I'd even get like 5 views on most of this stuff. So this is totally crazy. But yeah, so this bass has made my channel pretty popular, and it's, yeah, just a bass that I love in general, and I haven't made a video about it in a while, so this is like a little update video for you guys as to where this is at, because I have a few interesting things that I do want to talk about concerning this here bass. The first is, I really want to thank the bloody legend who sent me, a viewer who sent me this Hipshot bridge here. So you can see it right here. This is the Hipshot replacement bridge for the you know, a Rickenbacker, and somebody actually sent this in. A viewer of the show sent this in to me a while ago, and I've been meaning to do a whole video about it and like totally thank them, because this is absolutely amazing, and it, you know, makes this bass so much better. And I just can't believe they did that. So thank you so much, man. I really, really appreciate that. You're a bloody legend. Rock on. But yeah, let's get to talking about this bridge just for a second, because I had a few things I wanted to say about it. The first is, just like the previous bridge, you can kind of see there's a bit of a little gap here between the end of the bass and the bridge. When on a you know, actual Rickenbacker, the bridge generally should be closer to the bottom of the bass. The main reason for that, and I probably covered it in other videos, is that this has a different scale length than a real Rickenbacker, a tiny bit different, and it has 2 extra notes, so it makes the neck a bit longer, so the bridge has to move a little bit forward up to compensate for that. It means it is a little closer to the bridge pickup, which might affect the tone a tiny bitty. But yeah, so that's just some way to from a distance be able to tell whether a bass is likely to be a fake Rickenbacker. But another thing about this getting this bridge on is that you can kind of see that the strings, the space between the pickups and the strings, they're at an alright spacing, but this is actually the closest I can really get the strings and the pickup to be together. So the pickup is raised at its highest point, and the strings are raised as low as I can get them without them really buzzing, because the neck isn't perfect, or the fretwork isn't absolutely perfect. I've got it pretty good at the moment, but I'll get into that in a second. But yeah, and that's probably because I think the neck on this particular Chickenbacker is, or at least the fretboard is, a tiny bit higher up than it would be on a Rickenbacker. It's just my theory, because I actually had to raise this bridge by about 4 or 5 mil, and I'll explain that in a sec, in order to get the saddles to sit at the appropriate height, to get the strings high enough above the fretboard. How I did that is I got a chunk of, or a plate of aluminium, or aluminum for you American fans out there, however you like it pronounced. So you can see just under this bridge, there is actually like another layer of metal. So I got a plate of it. It's a soft metal, so it's pretty easy to cut out to be the correct shape. I drilled the appropriate holes that you get from this bridge here to be able to, you know, just put it under, put the bridge on top, screw it in, and it, you know, sits in there really well and has it nicely raised. So this is a really high mass bridge now, um, and works really good now actually, because the previous bridge on this base didn't have adjustable saddles, in the sense that you couldn't raise one saddle on its own. So you couldn't raise the two middle saddles just a touch, so to make up for the fretboard radius. Because even though this base actually has a pretty flat radius, it still does have that, and having a little adjustment there actually helps it, you know, not buzz as much. So aside from just, you know, the tone you get from like a really nice high mass bridge like this, the saddle adjustments there are really really helpful to this thing. It plays like a dream, um, partially now because of this fantastic bridge. So again, man, for sending, thank you so much for sending this in. Sorry I haven't done a video on this earlier. It just, I was really going to, but lots of issues came up, and I probably lost a bunch of videos at some point in the past few months, and haven't been able to get to it again. But yeah, that's why I'm making this video. So aside from that, the next thing I wanted to bring up was, I don't remember if I already did a video that I touched on this again, but if you guys recall or have been following the series, I changed out all the wiring in this thing and the pickups and rearranged it to be as close as can possibly be to a genuine Rickenbacker bass. And what I did, aside from changing out the pickups, is I changed out the tone pots and the volume pots. So the potentiometers in here, which are little things where the knobs connect to on the inside, and they basically are variable resistors, which filter off different signals. Either have the whole signal going through a resistor, which the higher that resistance is, the quieter it is, and that's how you get your volume going. Or you have a capacitor and a variable resistor wired together, and that filters off the high end, the high pitch signal off to ground, which is how you get rid of how the tone pot works. It's basically a low pass filter, and the higher that variable resistor's resistance is. So in this case, we either have 250, in a Rickenbacker we either use a 250k potentiometer or a 500k. So the 500k is a bigger resistance, which means that the bigger that resistance, the less of that signal is able to be filtered out to ground, meaning that a more bright signal can pass through all the way to your amp. I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, don't worry about it. But basically the gist of it is, this used the stock wiring on this thing when I did the first demo of these pickups, the real Rickenbacker pickups. I did it with the Chinese wiring, where all the tone pots were a 500k, tone and volume pots were at 500k resistance, which meant that the signal was nice and bright, and it just sounded fantastic. It sounded really punchy, and it gave me closer to that sort of, what would you call it, that Geddy Lee, Chris Squire, Rickenbacker bass tone that I was really after with this thing. But then when I changed it over to I swapped out two of these. I don't remember whether they were both the volume or both the tone pots, but I changed out two of them for, what is it called, 250k potentiometers, and the result I got I actually wasn't as happy with. Like, it still sounded great. It was, you know, technically it was closer to a real Rickenbacker sound, because a real Rickenbacker uses more, all the pots are, at least on like the older ones, I don't know if they still even make these types of potentiometers or if they still use them, but it was like 320k or something like that is the resistance that the I don't know, authentic Rickenbacker I've heard uses. So you kind of combine the 500 and 250k ones to get you close to that, and I just preferred the 500k ones, so I actually went back in since doing that, and I swapped them out again. So all the wiring is still the same, close to Rickenbacker wiring, with like the push-pull pot to that they have on the modern Ricks, and that all that sort of stuff, and the style of wiring is all the same. I just swapped those two potentiometers back to being 500k to make it a little brighter. So that's all about that stuff. Um, Another thing that I've noticed that makes this bass play really smoothly with, even though the fretwork isn't perfect on this thing and I just can't afford to either get the tools or pay a luthier to do the fret leveling on this thing. It's just, it costs about as much as this bass to cost me to actually get it done. From what I found out, and the tools are just ridiculously expensive, and I don't trust myself that I will be able to do it without having to do a bunch of practicing, and can't be bothered to do that because I got a lot of stuff on, a bit busy. But so I've discovered that it actually plays a little bit better down tuned. So I've got it in like I don't even remember what is it like. I've tuned everything down half a step, and then it's basically in drop D tuned down a half step all across the bass, if that makes sense. So it sounds really sort of smooth now. And it's just the strings feel a little bit softer to play on, so you don't have to press down as hard, and it just kind of, you know, it's nice and playable this way. I really like it down tuned. I don't know, it's just my personal preference of this particular bass. Um, so that's all the sort of stuff covering this specific bass, but one other reason I wanted to make this video is I wanted to sort of tell you the story of my attempting to get a second one of these things, custom made by a seller on AliExpress, which didn't go as well as I would have hoped. So what I did is I went on AliExpress, looked around, found a seller that had a pretty good rating that was making Rickenbacker copy bases, and what I was really looking for was one of their bases because they started making them a lot more accurate. I've noticed, and that's why I wanted to get another one because I wanted it to be even more accurate. But they've started making them with a neck through, which means that instead of it just being a set-in neck, like you can hopefully see on this one, where the neck goes in and then it stops here, and then a bit of it like it goes in through the body, but the rest of the body is made of separate bits of wood. What I wanted was one where the neck goes all the way through as one plank of wood basically down to this bit, and then the rest of the body is just two other bits of wood that are glued to the side of that, and that's how the real ones are made. Um, but uh, yeah, so that was one thing that I wanted, and also I wanted the correct scale length because this one has a scale length more like a Fender bass, I believe, and it has those two extra um, frets, which mean that the bridge doesn't sit quite correctly. So they are making them neck through ones with the correct frets. They cost a little bit more, but they are a lot more accurate in that sense. And I also wanted them to make it with a flat top and a different color scheme. So I sent through a bunch of those requests to the seller because they seem to be have fairly good feedback and all that stuff, and we're making ones pretty close to that description. And it took, I did this at about the time when in like the early part of the year, around I think January, I don't know, January, February I think. And around that time of year, oh, sorry, the video is getting kind of dark. It's about to be nighttime, so I should have put up a light. But oh well, we'll do this video in the dark. Um, but around that time of year, they have like their Chinese holiday of some sort where they just stop work for like a couple of weeks, and that really got in the way of how long this thing was taking. Um, and another problem was uh, that yeah, the because it's on AliExpress, and if you don't like give them enough time, basically, because you kind of select how long they have before you get a refund if they don't post it. That time ran out, so that and it ended up refunding me, but it didn't refund me like the 10% of the GST tax, because yeah, I have to like pay 10% now extra in Australia to buy overseas goods, which pisses me off a little bit. But yeah, so I basically got a refund, but not all of what I paid. And then, long story short, is like a long, long time later, they finally made the damn thing, and they showed me the photos, and it wasn't what I wanted. They didn't get the color right. Like, they didn't even try to get the color I wanted. They made it like a clear gloss one with the wrong binding. But they didn't do, like, I wanted an autumn glow. If you guys don't know what an autumn glow color on a Rickenbacker is, it's like a pretty rare one, but it just looks so cool. So here's a little picture of one, the actual picture I sent them of what I wanted. And this is the and then I'll show you that picture, and then I'll show you what they actually showed me. And you can see it has some issues with like the fretboard looking a little weird at the bottom, like it's a bit smaller than it should be, and some other just odd shape things. But yeah, I'll show you a picture of the base that I wanted them to make and the ones that they sent me, and it's pretty clear which is which. So yeah, there you can see where my issue was, and since then I haven't had any contact from them. I just told them that's not what I wanted, and like um yeah, that we've there's kind of been like a no contact since then, and it's been weeks now, so I don't even know if they're repainting it or they just gave up or what. So yeah, I'm kind of stuck with having lost like a good a small amount of money for like the GST tax and not having the base I wanted, and just having wasted a lot of time waiting. So yeah, that is something to be mindful of, but if you guys are trying to pursue this, then yeah, just make sure the seller sends you lots of pictures, be very clear about what you want, and hopefully you'll be more lucky than I have. I've heard some really good stories, but also this one didn't turn out quite as good. It wasn't as big a success story as this base was, even though this one isn't super accurate, and it's really dark on this video, so I'm sorry. Yeah. So I don't know what's gonna happen with that. Maybe I'll try again, maybe not. We'll see. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and all that jazz if you feel like it, or if not, whatever. But yeah, let me know what you think in the comments. Do you have any tips of dealing with AliExpress? What are your thoughts about these sort of counterfeit bases? Have you had any luck? Because I've heard a good number of people have wanted to try a project like this since watching my videos, or just in general, and I'm curious what have your results been, and have you got a base, put in these pickups into it and got that, classic Rickenbacker tone? I'm really happy with this one. What I might do is I might actually close off this video with just a little sample of a bit of music that I was recording with this bass. This is a very disjointed track that I've just started recording, so it's pretty much just bass and drums, and it's kind of weird and doesn't make any sense. But you get a nice sense of the bass tone, hopefully. So yeah, just enjoy that. Peace out, guys. Keep on rocking.